Hello, hello, hello. Good to see you. You get fairy dust, I get fairy dust, little Amelie friend gets fairy dust, and it's time for another lesson from Codependent No More, Melody Beatty. If you want more information about me, just check in the description box below. And also you can follow me on TikTok or Instagram. If you go to the link in my bio of Instagram, there's some stuff there for you. I have a newsletter, etc., etc. So just check the description box. Oh, and I just did a TikTok how I don't do anything right on social media. So I'm going to be very paradoxical and say, subscribe to my channel, please. Anyway, okay, so, we're on chapter 7, the bottom of page 74, and we're talking about how codependents love to control. And I know I've said it before, but it bears repeating. So I thought that healing codependency means that I wasn't going to be nice or giving or kind anymore. And so why would I want to heal that? Like, I love that about myself, right? But what codependency actually is about manipulation and control of other people. And so for me, the thing that made me want to stop was knowing that what I'm doing, the message I'm sending with my thoughts, actions, feelings, and behaviors to others is not great and dysfunctional and not helpful, you know? And it's ironic because we think that is our goal, to be helpful. So she's talking about how, like, we view other people like, and sometimes, you know, we attract each other at our level of mental health. So it's not a surprise that sometimes a codependent, a fawn, would be attracted to somebody who is needy or is in child mode, or also called victim mode. I don't really like that terminology, but like, woe is me and I need your help. And so that's a trigger for us to rescue. When that may not actually be the most helpful thing. And in the end, aren't we trying to do the most helpful? I just love how this book, I mean, it's over 25 years old. I have never seen a better one on codependency. And then Pete Walker's fawn work on top of that is just perfection. Like this, I've never encountered anything as good and pure and just hits the nail on the head. And sometimes we just need the nail to hit on the head, and then we're done. We take that information and we heal and we get better, instead of like, where's the next book? Where's the next book? Where's the next book on codependency? Which I am guilty of doing. Okay. But others might claim inability, proclaim their dependence, announce their overall victimization, and successfully control through weakness. They are so helpless without us. And see, already we're I teach transactional analysis, and that's parent, adult, child. And there's a class description in the below, if you want that information. But so automatically it's like, oh, you're so helpless, which makes me a parent and you a child, instead of saying we are two adults, we each have our issues. Maybe I could be helpful to yours. Maybe you can be helpful to be mine, but the thinking people are so helpless is very condescending, and we don't want to do that anymore. They need our cooperation so badly. They can't live without it. Sometimes the weak are the most powerful and manipulators and controllers. They have learned to tug at the guilt and pity strings of the world. This also reminds me of another really good book called Emotional Blackmail. And I'll put the link below for that book too. Susan Forward, I think. I don't know. Anyway, I'll put the link. And so there's different tactics people use to hook us into rescuing them, helping them, codependency with them, fawning them, versus them being checked into their life and living it to the fullest and trying to figure out how to solve their own problems. And that, to me, that's what this reminds me of, is like one of the 4 ways that people trigger, you know, that they will like given us an ultimatum, like I won't be able to make it without you, or stuff like that, to trigger. And what they use is what she calls fog, fear, something else, and guilt. So fear and guilt, I forget what the O stands for. Anyway, so sorry about that. Maybe I'll put that down below too. Obligation. Oh, I love it. Fear, obligation, and guilt. Many codependents combine tactics. And also there's something else that we haven't talked really about, but it's like codependents are attracted to codependents too. So we mainly think of like, oh, there's a user, like a addict, or, you know, somebody with some toxic behaviors or something, and we fawn them and we're the codependent. Oh, we're so bad, we're the codependent. But the codependency lives in the other person as well. And this is one of the ways of how they can pull us into these things for us to do the rescuing. But we get to also call that a kind of codependency, right? So if they're like needing me always to rescue their life, like I'm the only one that can make it better, then they're literally codependent. Like they can't be self-sufficient. There's zero autonomy there. So, and again, this will never lead, none of this shit leads to anything healthy or enjoyable. It just leads to tension and elephants in rooms and fucking resentment and misery. And so let's figure out how to do it differently. You know, like, you know, in the addiction world, and it applies here too, it's like giving up I'm a food addict, a compulsive reader, and bulimic, and so I binge eating disorder. Like I binge on a lot of food. And so not doing that addiction is hard. It's so hard not to do it, you know, like it is. Talk about dopamine. Again, I don't even want to talk about it that long because it's so like enticing. It loves for me to think about it. So, sorry. That's hard. But you know what else is hard? Being miserable, strung out on sugar, spending too much money on food, risking my life by purging, risking my life by just only eating massive amounts of processed food. Like that is hard too. That's a hard life. The life I had, you know, I was a compulsive overeater since childhood. And so I spent most of my life weighing a lot more than I do now, which is totally fine. I didn't know that at the time. There was no such thing as body positivity or anything like that. There was no, it was like, if you are overweight, you are bad, end of story. And so that's the programming that I grew up with, which I thank God to the millennials and the Gen Zs that are teaching me that no, like I'm perfect at any size. I'm gorgeous at any size. So, but anyway, this indoctrination that I have, this brainwashing that I have is pretty deep and pretty powerful. So living in that way, in that time, in that body was hard. Being in recovery is hard. Not participating in these behaviors is hard. We have to choose our hard. We have to choose our hard. It's hard not to rescue somebody who's always having an emergency. Like that's hard. That is hard. But you know what else is hard? Always solving their problem so they never actually feel the need to solve their own problems and find out who they truly are and what they are capable of. I'm sure you've heard me mention the term self-efficacy before. It's one of the selves. I talk a lot about like the true wound of childhood trauma is lack of self, lack of acknowledgement of self or understanding of self. And so that's why we have low self-worth, low self-efficacy, low self-esteem, low self-care, low self-love, low self-acceptance, low self-knowledge, like What do they all have in common? The self. So self-efficacy. So if we're always, okay, so self-efficacy means, besides being really fun to say, I know I can do this. I am confident in myself. I can do this. I am available for this. I am strong enough for this. I have what it takes for this, whatever this is. And when you're constantly rescuing somebody, you're stealing their self-efficacy. You're stealing that from them. So they don't get to walk around in the world of, I can do this. I'm going to be okay. Like, I can do this. So truly, I know it's backwards. You would think like I would say, and I will never say it, I want to heal my fawn. I want to heal my codependency because I want to be a better person. Because I want to be healthy. Because it's good for me. Unfortunately, that, if you can say it, I bow down to you. And I think it is the healthy thing to say. I do think it is actually the healthiest thing to say. That doesn't live in me. Unfortunately, now, maybe later, check in 10 years. But I do know that I don't want to hurt people. I do know that I want to allow and not steal people's problem-solving mechanisms. I don't want to steal people's, and even though they'll scream at us to beg us for their whatever, or their help, like just this one more time. I just need money this more time. I just need advice this one more time, even though it's the 10th time I've called you about this troubled relationship that I'm in. But we don't just don't talk to them. We're there for them. We're like, this is really hard. I'm in this with you. I love you so much. I'm sorry you're having to go through this. No rescuing, no problem solving on their behalf, no, condescending to them as if they're helpless. They may experience themselves as helpless, but they're actually not. But they won't know that. I won't know if I'm not helpless if someone constantly comes to my rescue. I will never know that. And I don't want to die not having self-efficacy, not knowing that I could do it. Like, I'm capable. Like Elizabeth, I can do this. I am capable. So I hope that's helpful. I just feel like we just kind of chip away like a sculpture. We just chip away in our recovery of oh, that unlocked that. And that's going to help me next time where I feel the need to rescue or control or, or when I find one of the reasons we give in is that fear, obligation, and guilt. Those aren't fun feelings. Fear, I don't want to feel fear. I don't want to feel obligation of all things, bitch. And I don't want to feel guilty. So how do I appease my feelings of fear, obligation, and guilt is to go rescue. So recovery is fucking uncomfortable. So they're going to throw this fear, obligation, and guilt at me. What am I going to do with all those feelings? Well, for one, this bitch will take them to therapy. What am I going to do? I have tools for that. I have all, I have to remember what codependency is, and I have to remember that this is just a phase of this relationship while I pull back my previous dysfunctional behavior. So I hope that's helpful. I love you so much. Love you.